ships. But right now we have these same people that were the engagers. They're also the same people that are influencing our national security policy. And for the last 20 years or so, people are just like the Brits had to manage their decline after World War II as they declined and we rose the United States. And that's largely been the mindset in Washington to deal with this problem. And I have never been accepting of that. I've been an outspoken critic of that. And I was very, very pleased to see the president down off Norfolk going aboard the Bush of naval power. America was founded not just as a land power. We recognized, and our founders recognized, we need both a land capability, a military, an army, but we also needed a navy. And it was written into our Constitution. The Navy and the Army were written in. And so why these experts for the last 35 years didn't think we needed a Navy and just allowed it to be decimated and gutted is beyond explanation. And there are explanations, but it's beyond acceptable. The explanations we can talk about, but the reality is we have let our Navy go, and we are not deterring the People's Republic of China. And the results of that we are seeing as they threaten our allies in the Philippines, as they daily now surround Taiwan, as they threaten our allies in Japan, but more importantly, as they threaten America's existence by pushing us out of the Pacific, whether physically with kinetic force or non-kinetic.
All right, so
a lot of people, go ahead.
Let's talk about a couple countries that I think we have to pay attention to, right? One, Japan faces the same issue with mass assimilation to their society right now. Their immigration rate right now in Japan is absolutely off the charts. There are only 3 countries in the world which do not have mass assimilation of others coming in. India, Russia, 4. Russia, China, and Poland. That's it. Those are the only 4 countries that are not seeing mass migration issues. Even if you talk about Africa, you have people that are migrating from one African nation to the other, and as if they have porous borders, right? And in large part, you have Chinese influences, which are taking over the entire continent of Africa. You have 4. You have 4 countries that are not facing a degradation of just their ethos as a nation. United States, we've been overrun by millions of illegals. Why is it that China is not, do you think China is pressing the buttons to get this to happen in other nations? I mean, including those in other Asian nations.
Oh, yeah, there's no question about it. I lived in Japan for 4 years over 2 different tours. And Japan was a homogenous society. It was a very peaceful society. It was a very safe place, very pro-America, and very homogenous. And the global elites, I'll use that phrase, and China was pushing this, was they didn't like it.
Right.
They don't like it. And so they weaseled their way in. And that's one of the issues that kept and basically forced the Japanese government to pick a new prime minister. And we'll see how Prime Minister Takaichi does with trying to restore that homogeneity inside Japan if they can remove some of these foreign influence. I think it's going to be a very task.
And I'm talking about from all different countries. I mean, Japan looks like a country that is lost. It looks like the UK.
Well, I have friends still in Japan. I'm not sure it's quite that bad at this point, but it's heading there. I don't disagree with that. And so the question, and you're right, it's not Chinese only. I mean, when I go back to when I lived there, the big threat was the chosen, the North Korean infiltration. Right. So there was a great concern in Japan about North Korean criminal elements coming into Japan. That was 50 years ago.
Well, and the crime rate in the last 10 years has gone up almost exponentially.
Right, it's crazy. And China is definitely behind it because China is involved with running the United Nations, and the United Nations agenda is to have mass migration. I live in Switzerland right now. My wife is Swiss. 10 years ago, I moved here when I retired. When I moved here 10 years ago, that's when Merkel opened up Germany. And all of a sudden, we started seeing the influx of Syrian refugees, quote unquote refugees, into Switzerland. And now, 10 years later, Switzerland is a country I can't recognize. I used to walk down our main street, and the only language I heard was Swiss German. Today, when I walk down that same main street, I don't hear Swiss German. I only hear foreign languages, all kinds of foreign languages. So there's an agenda to make mass migration across the globe.
Okay,
to
so
make,
then I
make
mean,
one world government. There's no question about it.
So, Captain, I got to come back to this right now. How do we fight against it? We see it happening in real time in the United States and in other nations around the world. And we said we need to do this using the rule of law. Obviously, Tom Homan is doing everything he can to expel those people that are here illegally. But we already have a cultural abyss that's happening in the United States. It's like it's gone too far. Is there? I mean, do we have to expel 20 million people and set new standards in the United States, or is this going to get to the place where it gets hot? Because I don't see it not getting hot based on what I'm seeing.
It looks like it's going to get hot. I mean, that's what it seems like. However, we need to do what we can where we can. So that means regular Americans like you and I have to be engaged. We have to talk to our children. We have to get out and stand up and get involved with every facet of our civil society, whether it's our school board or local town hall or whatever it is. We have to stand up and say, that's not right. We're not going to accept this. The idea that we're going to accept men playing in women's sports or men walking into women's bathrooms or vice versa, for that matter. We have to say, no, that's not right. We know what is right. We know what is wrong. The people that know what is right have to stand up and speak up and say, I'm not going to accept that. And then they have to be prepared for the pushback, because the left has gotten their talons so far into our flesh, they're not going to give up. So there's going to be pushback, and we're seeing it in these places like Portland and Seattle and Chicago and where else. But I don't, I like to use a biblical analogy. If you remember the story of Lot and Abraham and Sodom and Gomorrah, right? And God was going to wipe out Sodom and Gomorrah, and Lot or Abraham went to God and said, hey, if there's this many people there, please don't destroy it. And he went down the list until there was like nobody. We have to do that. We have to keep fighting for every person. We can't just say we're going to have an open civil war. That's not what we stand for in the first place. We have our country, we have a constitution, we have a declaration, we have almost 250 years of proven success, but we need to sustain that, and we need to not roll over. And that means old guys, old women, young women. We need to stand up and say, this is wrong. And so we have examples of it in our country. I think of Riley Gaines standing up and saying, I'm not going to accept swimming against a man. I'm not going to do it. We need more people like that. And it comes with a cost. You're going to be ostracized. You're going to be ignored. I mean, I was in the naval intelligence community, a respected person in that level. But once you get painted with a brush as a radical, or at that time, just speaking out against China was bad enough. You shouldn't talk ill of China. We were supposed to not provoke China. That was the unwritten rule of the Obama administration. Do not provoke China, because that's the most important relationship we have, and so we have to accommodate them and appease them. And that's what we did for 35 years, and look what it's brought us. External and internal threats.
Okay, I'm going to come back to something in the U.S. soil. Let's talk about domestic policy. China, all these other nations want to come in and destroy what we're having going on in our country. We've accepted the fact there's this globalist agenda. We can see it as clear as day right in front of us. We see that the elections are largely fabricated and that people have been selected, not elected. Our judiciary is rotted to the core. You don't have to agree with anything I'm saying, but you can stop me anytime if you don't. Judiciary is completely rotted. The legislators have never asked the people what they want. They bark at the people and tell them what the people want, even though they don't want it. You have a president that basically can't even get the support of his own Republicans. The Democrats shut down the government and they want to blame President Trump. Make it make sense. You know, how do we fix any of this? How do we fix any of this if we cannot get to a place?
Go ahead.
If we can't get to a place where the ridiculous does not have a voice. I mean, they're grooming children, for God's sakes. They're literally doing stuff all over the country to do crazy. There's a reason why you went to Switzerland. You thought you could escape the madness, only to find out the madness ended up on your doorstep. So now that we're looking at this, you know, just as clear as day, right in front of us, how do we deal with this? If we don't start, I mean, I'm just gonna say it, throwing people in prison, like Matt, just line up 50,000 of them.
No, I'm not sure about that part of it. There's no question that people need to be held to account. I think what I would say is I look at strategic trend lines. And so the trend line has been very negative, as you've described. We've had an unraveling of civil society. We've had craziness with immigration and all these crazy societal things. But on the other hand, we elected a guy, even though he got, you know, I believe he got robbed in 2020. But the way the fates worked is that he didn't get into the job and he couldn't carry on for 4 years. And now he got reelected again in 24. And that guy now is doing a lot of things different than he did in his first administration. He's got people around him that are trustworthy to the extent that he didn't have in the first administration. And the first administration was against the trend line of the last 30, 40 years of Republicans, Democrats in many ways. So he's now back in and he's responsive to the people. Remember this thing with the Epstein files. He came out in that cabinet meeting and said, what are we talking about this for? And it exploded, right? Everybody said, what do you mean, what are we talking about it for? You're the guys that told us it was important when you ran for office. You're the guys that told us you had the list. All this stuff. And what happened? They started releasing stuff. Is it everything? No. But is it a recognition that this guy actually listens to the people, unlike any other administration in my lifetime, except for maybe Reagan, which was a different dynamic in a different era. But Trump at least has this idea that he understands what the people are saying and what they want, and he's trying to respond to it. He's not perfect, but he has that sense about him. And I think that should tell us as citizens that believe in this republic that, hey, if we want to see change, we can't just give up and throw our hands up and expect that there's going to be somebody right in that's going to arrest everybody, that we have to speak up and get organized. The left's been organized since the Vietnam War. You know, Saul Alinsky, rules for radicals. We need our rules for patriots. We need rules that say this is how patriots operate, and we do. It's called the Constitution. It's called the Bill of Rights. But it means that we have to be engaged. We have to actually engage in our civil process, in our government process. We have to get off our couch. You know, we can't watch sports all the time and all those things that we're finding out are rigged anyway, like this NBA scandal. So we need to say what's important. If you think that the future of America is important, the future of your children and grandchildren are important, then you've got to stop, you know, watching the sports or doing other things. You got to get engaged. And that means you have to make hard decisions, and you're going to get depressed, like you are a bit, I think, about how it seems so bleak.
Well, I don't. Hold on a second. I don't think it's bleak at all. I think President Trump is doing the things that he wants to do, but it's always good to hear experts and what they think as related to kind of what we're seeing. Like the public is getting the feeling that something bad is about to happen, and we're going to go to, it's going to turn kinetic, right? The public is feeling that, right? So I would say that I believe that we're down in Venezuela because we're going to beat the living crap out of them until they beg for us to stop, and then he's going to say, give up the people that stole my elections in the United States for the last 2 decades. Like I believe that's what President Trump is doing. I believe that he already knows that he has a half-rotted cabinet, and that some of his cabinet is really good. Others are just useful idiots that frankly are standing in the way of progress, just like they did in 17. I think he can see it clearly, right? But it's interesting to hear from both a medical perspective, because we had a doctor on yesterday that talked about the fact that I don't know how you deal with this without it going kinetic, and then I want to hear the military perspective of, can we get there without it going kinetic? We both hope that it doesn't go that way, but it looks that way.
Right, and oh, by the way, the president is, told and when he went to Quantico after Hegseth gave his speech, the president said, "Hey, guess what? You're going to learn how to do your job in America," and that obviously the left got very upset about that. They somehow forgot that the oath that we swear to the Constitution says we defend the country against all enemies, foreign and domestic. So if we have domestic enemies, we have to deal with them. We'd prefer not to deal with American soldiers against our own citizens, but there may come a time when we have American citizens that are in violation of the law and are trying to destroy the republic. And we've had that once before. It was called the Civil War. We don't want to go there. It was very deadly. So if we can avoid it by doing the things I've kind of tried to allude to, that's better. But if we get to the point where we have to, then we'll have to deal with it as it comes. But I would just, most people that are listening aren't in the military, probably. Maybe they are. I presume they're not active duty. So the question is, for what are the people that are listening, what can they do? And so they have to, as you said, the president can see it. Well, we need to see it too. We need to see what's right, what's wrong, and we need to call out. If we think that they're doing something, or there's somebody in the cabinet we think is useless or is counterproductive. But I have to say, just like on this trip to Asia right now, there was a lot of talk in the campaign last year about Japan, and it seemed to be this kind of distrust of Japan and this comments about Japan. And I was a little bit taken aback because of my longtime associations in Japan and working with the Japanese military and knowing the people of Japan and the fear that they have of what they're sitting right off their front step with the People's Republic of China. I mean, they know what's coming to them, and the Chinese remind them on a daily basis that they hate them and they want to pay back for World War II. And so the Japanese have always wondered about Americans, and then when an American president runs for office and kind of makes comments about Japan, there was a lot of concern amongst some of us about what's going to happen when the president goes to Japan. And I have to say, I watched today every little thing that he did, and it was masterful. He not only was saying the right things and doing the right things, but it was from the heart, it was from his head, and it was for America. But it was to say, hey, Japan and America, we share the same concern. And when China goes on the warpath kinetically, we're both going to get it. And so we need to work together. And he got that across. And fortunately, he has a prime minister in Japan now that seems to be somebody that could be his, to use the Reagan analogy, she could be the Thatcher to Trump, she could be like Takaichi could be like Thatcher was to Reagan. And I hope that's true. But the point is, I saw something from President Trump in the last 72 hours that showed that this guy he's incredible in his ability to assimilate and learn things from somebody that had no experience in this arena, in a day-to-day basis. He was in another world. He was in building and all that. Yeah, he had a first administration, but his first administration was consumed with two impeachments and traitors in his own ranks within the cabinet and the constant attacks every day and dealing with stuff that just was incredible. And now he's got that knowledge, 4 years to think about it, and now he's hit the deck running and he's performing. And so I think there's a hope there in terms of, that's my perspective on the exterior threat. I think he's got similar insights and knowledge and understanding for the internal threats. And we're seeing him do it, like what he did was sending the National Guard to Washington, D.C. He made that happen. He used the law. He didn't break the law. That's the thing that nobody can throw at him. He has not broken the law, and he's followed the law. And when the judges say you can't do that, he said, okay, I'll find another way. But he has gotten the point across, and he's making the case to the Americans, even the people that used to hate him, are starting to see, hey, what this guy did brought us safety in Washington, D.C. It's not dangerous anymore. I can walk the streets. I'm not going to get shot. I'm not going to get robbed. I'm not going to get raped. And he's making that case, and it's taking some time, but it's coming. And where these left blue states refuse to accept the offers, we're going to see pushback in those areas, and regular citizens are going to start coming out against these leftist progressive Marxists, I think. That's the hope that I have, and we need to help them along. We need to push them along and show them that this is the better way. This is the more secure way. This is the American way.
Well, I mean, you know, when we sit here and have a conversation about what President Trump has done, and hey, I'll find a new way. What I think we need to emphasize is the fact that President Trump has been overturned by judges to say you're not allowed to do this, and as it goes up the ladder, the Supreme Court has had to step in almost 24 times to say no, this is what you're saying is not right. So there's a recognition that no matter where you turn, President Trump is getting blocked by judges who, frankly, are acting like they're the kings. And these are rotted judges, and there's so many of them that, you know, we're in an active coup right now. We're in the middle of an active coup. Like, this coup has been going on for a long time. They built up density, and just like sleeper cells, they exploded during 2020 when there was this massive amount of chaos. So, you know, I mean, I totally agree with you that, you know, we need to stay within the confines of the law, and President Trump has done a good job doing that. But no matter what he does, you have the radical left saying that he's breaking the law. So when you get to the place where every time you turn around, you have public trust that's being eroded by a mainstream media and paid agitators that are causing all of this, at some point, the tipping point can't come. You can't get there because they keep raising the bar or moving the goalposts. And so you're just, you know, you're diluting some of the work that President Trump is doing. It works overseas because they're deathly afraid of President Trump. I mean, he dropped a MOB on the middle of Iran. He's not afraid of anything, right? But in the United States, we keep trying to handle it with kid gloves. But we have a massive problem in our country with demons, devils, people that would do harm to the people. I don't see any other way for President Trump to do this than to declare, man, I hate to say this out loud, not declare martial law. Maybe I am saying declare martial law, but declare something of the recognition that here's all the stuff that they're doing, and they're done. The only way to get rid of it is to arrest this governor, arrest this governor, arrest this mayor for sedition, for allowing, you know, the American people to become victims of foreign invaders. I don't know. I would do it differently.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you, and I understand your intent and your heart on that. But I would also say we're getting to the point now where it's not just Trump, it's the rest of civil society. You can call it MAGA, you can call it whatever you want, but it's this group of Americans that recognize, hey, if we don't start enforcing the rules and the laws to maintain the system that we've built and had for 200 years, then when they come back into power, they're not going to just assassinate President Trump. They're going to throw us all in jail. They're going to destroy our lives, and we're going to be done for. And so I think what's happened in this last 8-9 months is the rhinos, the GOP and the Congress, which not all are rhinos, I'm sure, but I think
there's a lot of them.
A lot of them. Yeah, and they have like acted like, well, we're a separate group, and we'll have our power base. And I think Trump's finally gotten through their thick skulls to a degree. Hey, you're not a separate group that's going to be standing alone when the Mandami takes over and runs for president and institutes Sharia law or communism. They're going to throw you in jail too. So this idea that you're not going to do, for instance, why did the Congress go into recess for so long to not allow the president to put in recessed judge appointments.
Why not?
I mean, it's insane. That's a legal thing to do. They
Why
could
didn't
have
they do
done
it?
that.
Why didn't they do it?
Right. They didn't
Oh.
do it because they didn't feel the pressure from us to say, hey, we elect you. We want you to do this so that the president can get about doing what we elected him to do. And there we're like, well, if we do that, then we give up our power to the president. And I think they're finally starting to realize we better give it up to him, because if we don't give it up to him and we don't advance what the American people want, then the left, by their own admission, is going to come and destroy us. Just like the Chinese Communist Party said, we're going to come and destroy you. So they told us that.
So what you said is really interesting, because it's not just the judge appointments. It's not even, that's actually the—
Well, it's
the
cabinet and all these other things and government officials, yes.
It's ambassadors. It's ambassadors to other countries. It's people that sit inside the embassy. And there's over 60 of them. There's over 60 right now, Biden appointed ambassadors that, and this is the other problem that I have with his cabinet. Marco Rubio, they all put in their resignations, right? And he didn't accept them. He didn't accept them. Why? And why did both the Democrats and the Republicans 100% say, yeah, we like Marco Rubio? I mean, it should have been a red flag. President Trump should be like, just kidding, you're out, right?
He's done some good things. He shut down USAID. He shut down some other, stuff that was not necessary. So he's making changes.
Yeah,
I don't know. I cannot explain why you would keep any person from the previous administration in the federal government. Not one person that was appointed by Joseph Biden or his regime, because he didn't do it. Whoever appointed him in that previous administration, I would never have them and allow them to stay in, even if the position went empty and I had to use a charge d'affaires. That's just not acceptable. So, but the larger point, or it's not larger, but let's get back to the rhinos in the Congress. All they have to do is say, hey, we're out of session completely, and the president can start filling those positions. Why didn't they do that? Why do we still have this filibuster when we can have a continuing resolution? We're just a few days away. Today's what, the 28th of October. So in 3 days, the people are not going to get paid in the U.S. military. People that are at sea right now, people that are overseas, their lives are on the line. We just saw two aircraft crash off the USS Nimitz in the South China Sea this week. Okay? Yeah. It's a deadly business just being at sea in peacetime. So we're asking people to put their lives on the line for the country, and we're not going to pay them because John Thune doesn't want to call the Senate and say we're out of session completely, and either does the Speaker of the House, so that the president can put these people in and keep this government running. So there are issues there, and we need to put heat on them as well. It's not just one guy. It's got to be all of them that say they believe in the principles of the Republican Party and what it stands for, which is for the country. And if we're not going to stand up for it, then they need to be primary, and they need to be removed. But that means the people of their cities and their states and counties all have to get off the couch, get off the Game Boy or whatever they're doing, and vote. And we're not doing it.
Yeah, I agree with you. Captain, thanks for coming on with us. How do people follow you? I know you have a book out, so we need to probably plug that here real quick.
Well, we wrote a book last year. My co-author, Dr. Brad Thayer, and I wrote a book. It's right there over my shoulder. Embracing Communist China, America's Greatest Strategic Failure. And it's been out for a year. And it's really, if you're interested in what it is that both Republican and Democrats did to embrace Communist China and Wall Street, and the military and our State Department, we talk about that. And it's basically boils down to three fundamental things. We have hubris. We were hubris about our strength as a nation. We thought we could just didn't have to worry about the Chinese after the Soviet, the wall came down and all that, and the end of communism. Francis Fukuyama's, the end of history. We thought we were in control. We didn't have to worry about anything. then we had greed. We have people inside our own system that took money from China and advanced their careers. And we could, there's names in the book and things of that nature. And then thirdly, we have to give the Chinese Communist Party a bit of credit. Deng Xiaoping had a strategy on how to, as he said, bide their time and hide their weaknesses, and they infiltrated the United States. They knew our weaknesses better than we did, and they were able to play them off and have guys like Kissinger and all of his acolytes promote engagement with China for the last 35 years. And it was successful, and they did a good job of it. And now we're in the position we're in. And we, if you understand that, then you can understand why we need to do something about it. And so that's really the purpose of the book.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to read it, and then I'll have you back on. We'll talk about it. I'm deep in the process. I have a stack of books now. It looks like it's like a mountain. I keep having people on. But I'm getting through them, and I'll get through them pretty quick. I read a book a week on average, so we'll get you back on. But I do want to say thank you for your service. Thank you for the work that you've done. I'm sorry that you're over in Switzerland. We could sure use you fighting over here. And, keep up the good fight. And I look forward to having you on again.
Yeah, my wife is Swiss. She married me, and she followed me around the Pacific for 30 years. And when I retired, we came here to take care of her mom. And then her mom passed right in the beginning of COVID, not from COVID, but at the beginning of it. And we just kind of got stuck here. And we've kind of been here since the COVID lockdowns. And but I am an American 100%. I only have one passport, and I eat, sleep, and breathe America 24/7. So I'm not over there physically, but my mind and my body and soul, or my soul and my mind, are there.
Well, I tell you what, you put 30 years of service in, so I want to thank you for that. And, we have an obligation as Americans to continue to fight all the way to the bitter end. And so I know that you'll be doing that as well.
I pray for America, and I pray that we don't forget the kind of sacrifices that people really made, the people that made it in World War II and Korea and Vietnam, to keep and others since then, and even in the Middle East, that people that died for this nation to keep it free. And if you don't understand, if you Americans that are listening right now, I've lived overseas a lot of my life. And if you don't understand what it means to be an American, let me tell you, we are a unique people. We are different. We are blessed by God, by what we've had in our country. And we have a different approach to authority figures and to top-down control and to propaganda and lies. And we have always been that, as Reagan said, that shining city on the hill, and the light's almost gone out, and we need to light that fire big time. We need to have a big bonfire at the top of the hill and remind the world that we're Americans. And when we do that, the rest of the world will follow.
I agree with you fully. Thanks, brother. Thank you for coming on. God bless you.
God bless you. Thanks.
The perspective that he brought to the table, that James brought to the table, is an interesting one, because it talks about the meltdown. We always tend to see things from a singular standpoint, not from this multidimensional place that we live our lives. And China is one big part of this piece. And you can see what they've done inside the United States. I like to talk about domestic policy because I think it influences how we handle foreign policy. And with China, stoking the waters and doing the things that they've done in our country, it's not hard to come to the conclusion that they want to destroy the United States. But you also can't ignore what we've been able to face across the entire globe. There's 190-ish nations around the world. Of those 190 nations, there's only 4 that don't have mass migration issues. 4. And then you have other countries that you talk about apartheid in South Africa and what they've done to white people, and this anti-white mentality that's kind of leaked across the country. And where does that come from? These are things that as Americans we have to pay attention to. And I think one of the other issues that we have to pay attention to is the fact that we don't understand our own doctrine. Most people cannot tell me what it is the Fourth Amendment. What's the Fourth Amendment in the Constitution? What's the 14th Amendment? What's the 17th Amendment? What's the 18th Amendment? What's the Third Amendment? We talk about the Second Amendment. You can't infringe upon someone's rights to bear arms. Talk about the First Amendment. We miss part of that as well. You have the right to free speech, also says that you have the right to assembly. And we can't even get that right. because we don't spend any time studying the ethos of our country. So it's easy for people to take things from you when you do not take the time to become educated on both sides. Look, if you haven't read, the Art of War, you should read it. If you haven't read things that have to do with the radical left and their ideologies, shame on you. If you haven't read our Constitution, if you haven't studied our Constitution, then you should probably put on speed dial YouTube videos that go through each one of the amendments to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. You should understand the foundation of this country, the letters that were written by Thomas Jefferson, the things that we have related to the early foundings of this country, because there's other documents related to how we've actually been established as a country that are important. They're paramount to understand where part of our culture comes from, because a vast majority of even our systems come from British rule, still to this day. And do you know what the bar stands for? I mean, just if you even know what bar stands for, the Lawyers Guild, that's called the bar. You have to join the bar, and the pledge that you have to give when you join the bar. That should scare you enough. But we cannot establish a way where we go back to a place where we have ethical boundaries and we stop this degradation in our country if we don't understand those things. So now I'm gonna start here. This next part of the podcast is going to get fiery. Do you believe all Muslims are bad? Do you believe that all Christians are good? Do you believe that Christians are bad? Do you believe that atheists are bad? We already know the answer for Satanists. Yes, they're all bad. Do you believe all Jews are bad? Yesterday, I told you that I was going to have a conversation about the erosion that we have in our country. 40+%, 46% in the state that I'm in, of judges are Jewish, Jew-ish. Now, these cowards hide behind Jews with the idea of anti-Semitism, you hate us, hate crimes are up. It's just not true. It's fundamentally not true. See, these demons just make it up as they go along. And you'd say, Joe, it's the Jews, they own everything. Yeah, it's actually not the Jews, it's the Jew-ish. It's a cabal. It's a fraternity. It's a networking group of evil people who swallow things up collectively, and they own it all. But what if I told you that the degradation in our country is directly tied to deviancy, and that I can prove to you that these Jewish people own it? I can prove it to you, and that they lie. What if I could show you some of the things related to this perversion that has swallowed up our country? I'm talking 20 million people a day that are getting involved in certain aspects with just 20 million people a day that are going to places that promote deviancy. And not only do they promote deviancy, but they build it into the brains. They rot out your brain if you go to these environments on purpose. They want to destroy you. What if I told you they do it under the basis of religion? It's true. What I'm telling you is absolutely true. There's a conspiracy to destroy every part of our country. We should be out there punching these people just flat in the face. We should be tearing them to pieces. What I'm talking about is the porn industry. Now, we could tie it back to the economic, the financial industry. We could talk it back to the fact that this is going to be blocked on nearly every platform because they're all owned by Jewish people. From YouTube to Google, all run by people who frankly don't want me to have a voice, don't want you to have a voice. Matter of fact, they want you to be their slave. It's right out of the book of the Talmud Institute out of New York City that trains up people out of that institute to hate Christians. Hate them. Make them your useful idiots. Make them your dogs. Take from them whatever you want. Isn't that what Zuckerberg did? He stole Facebook. A DARPA project that was started by a certain group. He came in, they're like, okay, we're gonna take this idea, we're gonna meld it out here, we're gonna put it out there in the public, we're telling them, you gotta consume this. Let's start off with the Bibi Jew song. Play it.
Baby Jew, oh what a guy, rules with an iron fist, makes the good folks cry, bossing round the town with his ego so grand, oppressive little prick, got the world in his hand. Hey baby Jew, you're a thorn in our side, pushing us down but we won't hide. Oppressive prick, your reign's gonna end, freedom's coming my tyrannical friend. Yeah, Baby Jew, what a and to the point, perfect for a quick listen or meme. Sing it with attitude.
Now, before I say anything more about this, let me just say this. Do you know who doesn't like Bibi? 90% of Israel, 90% of real Jews. Do you know who's absolutely ashamed by what Bibi's done around the world? Most of the Jewish population. You could equate Israel to Memphis, Tennessee, or Washington, D.C. in Ward 7 or Ward 8. You could. You could equate it to a country that is under siege, that is held hostage by this fraternity. So you either play ball by the Bibi Jew regime or you're out. You could today go look at just an aerial view of Gaza. And you could just go back in time and look at it, what it was 6 months ago. And you'd be hard pressed not to get the feeling, that gut feeling in your chest, that thing that tells you this just is not right. Now, at the same time, AIPAC operates and owns 99% of our politicians in Congress. But there's a difference. You know, I tell you that if we do not start differentiating between this evil synagogue of Satan and the actual Jews, we will find ourselves in the same place we were in the 1920s and the 1930s. And it's no better than basically going after any sort of race or religion. And one of the things that Captain James said when he was just on, which I found interesting, was that, and it's very true, is that the American people, call them MAGA, call them whatever you want, but it's American people. Yesterday we had people on here where we were talking about their propensity to say, hey, come, when you're done with Memphis, come to Atlanta. You got a black dude saying, get over here. And you have people in Memphis saying, thank you, President Trump. I can now walk through the store. I haven't been able to walk to the store in 20 years. And I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding when I tell you that 99% of the people that live in this poor environment that were completely forgotten. You want to think that you feel invisible? Okay, go live in a place where there's no opportunity, no education, and absolutely zero food. Because you got animals that come through and rob Walmart blind. And do you think they only rob Walmart blind? No. They rob people that are poor in their own environment. Those people don't come out of their house after 6 o'clock. So when we talk about the degradation of society, of what's happening in the United States, I'm telling you right now, Israel is held hostage. The people of Israel are pissed. They feel like slaves too. And the only people that are holding this thing over their head right now are godless people who really don't care and give a shit about any other part of the country or the world for that matter. They're going to capture America by doing one thing, pushing you to a place of perversion. And you can see it every day. All of the LGBTQI, whatever you want to call it, organizations that are out there that are promoting cutting off penises and hurting children and putting sexualized books in schools are all run by Jews. 100%. And they're the fake Jews, by the way. They're not getting the promise. They're getting the curse. Because I do want to tell you something else. Jesus said in John, he said it very clearly, John 6:14, I think, you cannot come to the Father except through me. That's a curse, by the way, because if Jews don't accept Jesus, how are you going to get to God? That's why I know that you can see it clearly. Listen, I'm not trying to convince you that Jews are bad because they're not. I'm trying to convince you that there is a cabal, there is a cartel so big. Charlie Kirk saw it. Stu Peters has seen it. And you could say Stu Peters is an anti-Semite. He admits he's an anti-Semite. I don't even know how you check that. Candace Owens, she an anti-Semite? Is she out there attacking? No, she's attacking rabbis that use the word rabbi, ordained to a position to represent God to the people, whose entire business is dildos. You think that's a rabbi? Oh, I'm not done yet. I want you to see this. This is a clip of who runs the world. And I want you to pay attention to what happened when he started talking about who runs the world. I'm not a self-loathing individual. I don't want any harm to come to any country. But let's be honest where we are right now. We are in a place right now where we don't have a country. We have been captured, and there are good people inside of President Trump's cabinet that represent that 90% of those people in Israel that want help, that are being held hostage just like the people in this country. Let's play it.
Who's in control? Who was in charge of the CDC that was controlling and telling our government to shut down small businesses and what they recommend for the mandates of the vaccines and Pfizer and all? At the time when COVID was being enacted, I'm going to read off the staff of who was in charge of this CDC. The director of the CDC was Rochelle Walensky, dual citizenship with Israel. She's a Jew. Deputy director of the CDC, Ann Shawalchik, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew. CDC chief of staff, Sherry Berger, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew. CDC chief medical officer, Mitchell Wolf, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew. CDC director of the Washington office. This is pertinent to the topic. We're talking about COVID, right? Yeah. This is pertinent to COVID. So I love you, Jennifer. Yeah, please. So director of the CDC of the Washington office, Jeff Resnick, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew. COVID czar, Jeff Zaints, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew. COVID senior advisor, Andy Slavitt, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew. Assistant of Health Secretary for Human Services for our country, the Assistant of Health Secretary, Rachel Levine, transgender, dual citizenship with Israel, yes, Jew.
I ask that you hold off, Christopher.
Ma'am, I'm almost done.
Mr. Wood, the chair has ruled that your comments are out of order. She's asked you to stop. The chair has...
You said Jew. There's nothing wrong with Jew. It's not derogatory. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, keep on going. Head of Pfizer Vaccines, Albert Bourla, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew. Pfizer chief scientist, Michael Dostik, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew. Moderna chief scientist, Tal Zaks, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew. BlackRock, everyone know BlackRock? BlackRock CEO, Larry Fink, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew. I said we're willing to sacrifice our ego, our reputation, and our lives. Yes, ma'am, and I love you, and I appreciate your patience. BlackRock's president, Rob Capital, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew. The CDC chief medical officer of Johnson & Johnson, Joanne Waldstreicher, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew. Chief medical officer of Merck, Michael Rosenthal, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew. Head of Pfizer of the World Economic Forum, Yuval Harari, dual citizenship with Israel, Jew. And that's what we're talking about.
Christopher, you need to stop.
Who's in control of the media? Vote banks, and go on. God bless you. Thank you for your time.
Well, part of that was bad. And by the way, I shouldn't have to say this. My business partner, he's a Jew. He's a God-fearing man. He's also gay. And you'd say, oh, Joe, how do you reconcile it? I accept my brother where he is, not where I want him to be. He's married to a woman that has 2 children. He is still married to that woman. So he made choices in his life to honor his relationship. How many men are in a heterosexual relationship that can't keep their penis in their pants? That cheat on their wives? This is probably the most impactful story that I've ever done. I started it yesterday, and I had to pray about this one. And I had to pray about it because I needed to understand whether or not what I was saying was going to be accepted. I'm at that place right now where I want the general public to understand Again, I'm a guy that has no credibility. No credibility. That's what they said. That's what this piece of crap that worked for me and lied and tried to tell my assistant of 10 years. He knows everything about me. He sees every text message I have, sees every email that I have. I'm a very transparent person in my life. I'm transparent with you. I'm transparent with the people that work with me. I'm transparent with my assistant. I'm transparent with my wife, my children. But I have no credibility. That's what they said, no credibility. So the things I'm putting in front of you, I mean, I wouldn't listen to me because they told you not to listen to me. Matter of fact, every one of these platforms came out and said, listen, we're going to do everything we can to keep Joe Oltmann off of the airwaves. We're going to send out people who are this treasure hunter and say, oh, yeah, Joe has no credibility. Look at his notes. He has bad handwriting. We're going to have other people talk about the fact that he didn't record the Eric Coomer thing, but then we're going to stand up on stage and we're going to tell people that you have a recording so that you could open up the gates of the mainstream media to come after me. Yeah, we're going to do all that. We're going to do everything we can to set up this deal where the New York Times and others can take shots at Joe, and we can build out this entire thing where you go to Grok and they're like, oh, it's been debunked, like everything else that's been debunked about the elections. Now we know that that's not true, and again, I don't have credibility, so I don't know why you'd listen to me. So what you're about to hear right now is coming from a person that doesn't have credibility based upon what these people are. By the way, these people have never accomplished a thing in their life. Their kids are a train wreck. Their lives are a train wreck, but they want to tell you that I have no credibility. The guy that's been married for 23 years. Yeah. No credibility. Let me go on. What's the number one problem we face in America? It's pornography. And if you think that I'm wrong, then tell me why children are being groomed. Books in second grade are being written so they can be sexualized. They're getting them ready. And I want to show you something else. This is interesting, to say the least. This is a man talking about the beginning of the takeover of porn by the Jewish synagogue of Satan. Play it.
Gravitated towards the porn industry because it's like kind of the seedier cousin of the Hollywood industry, which had already been controlled by the Jews. And basically they pretty much just took it over. The godfather of the modern day porn industry, his name was Reuben Sterman, who was actually an Orthodox Jew. He owned over 200 bookstores all around the country. He's actually my godfather. What the Jews did pretty much was they revolutionized the adult industry and made it their own. So there was no space for anti-Semitism, and they basically controlled everything. But back in the 80s, the only way you could get pornography was to go through someone like Reuben Sterman, and he controlled, all of his stores and all the stores that he didn't own. They actually had to pay him a tax to carry his product. Reuben Sterman, actually, eventually he died in prison. They tried to get him from obscenity back in the 80s, which was a big thing. And it actually still is. There is an obscenity arrest today. But he eventually died in prison because of tax evasion, because he didn't want to pay taxes. Back in the 70s, the majority of the male porn performers were Jewish, and the majority of the female performers were Roman Catholic. All the business owners are pretty much Jewish, or have Jewish ties, or at some point worked for a Jew. Much founded by the Jews.
Still not convinced? Put this up. This is who owns OnlyFans? Let me run through this with you. And look, you can call me whatever you want at this point. You want to tell me that I'm anti-Semitic because I'm pointing out the obvious? These people long abandoned the Jewish people. They are slaves and in bondage the same way that we are in America. And if you think Christians and Jews are so closely related and there's this thing called Zionists and we should have this Judeo-Christian deal, it's not true. Look, I am deeply involved in my faith right now. Deeply. I'm going to, now it's called, it used to be RCIA, now it's called OCIA, to convert to Catholicism. I'm in that process right now. And so I am questioning everything about my faith. A lot of prayer. At the same time, I'm prepared for battle at all times. I'm well trained. Knock the apple off your head with a 9mm straight from prone position. Boom. Who owns OnlyFans? Leonid Radvinsky. Juice. Who owns most porn sites, including Pornhub? Rabbi Solomon Freeman. Who owns Tinder? Joe Simkai. Who founded Bumble? Whitney Wolf Herd. Jews. So when your children, by the way, I want to just put that out there. When your children are out there trying to figure out how many sex partners they can have and jumping from relationship to relationship to relationship, you know, the biggest problem that these young people are facing right now is fidelity. The biggest problem we have in our country is fidelity. All hookups and sex, all run by Jewish synagogue of Satan people who want to destroy the Christian values of our country. The degradation that we're on. Listen, let's just go back. Let's go back in time and look at it. Margaret Sanger, eugenics, killing off black people. Now, black people are in an environment right now where all these different NAACP, all these organizations are funded by who? Let's genocide an entire generation of black people. And by the way, let's get out there and use influencers like the Krappenstein brothers to say how bad it is that you have the National Guard going into Memphis, Tennessee, and Washington, D.C. And let's walk past and over the bodies of those young people who are in prison because they had PTSD so bad that it messed up their brains so bad that frankly, they will never be normal again. And the children that can't go out after 6 o'clock, can't play in the yard, can't be normal, they're forced